Do you remember any moment a cat hesitated before accepting kindness? Not aggression, not anger, just hesitation. A pause before approaching food. A slight flinch before being touched. A body that wants comfort, but remembers something painful first. And what makes this difficult for many humans to understand is that cats who struggle with trust are often not unfriendly at all. They are not cold. They are not emotionless. In many cases, they are simply carrying memories humans cannot see. Because once trust breaks inside a cat, it rarely returns quickly. Cats do not rebuild trust through grand moments. They rebuild it through tiny emotional evidence collected over time. One safe interaction, one calm evening, one moment where nothing bad happened. And slowly, almost invisibly, the nervous system begins asking a question it stopped asking long ago. Could safety still exist here? Cats survive through prediction. They constantly study patterns around them. Footsteps in the hallway, voice tone, how fast someone walks, the sound of doors closing, the emotional atmosphere inside a room. And when fear becomes repeated, abandonment, rough handling, loud homes, unstable routines, unpredictable humans, something inside the cat quietly changes. Not dramatically, silently, the cat begins scanning before relaxing, watching before approaching, preparing escape routes before attachment becomes emotionally risky. This is why rebuilding trust often looks invisible in the beginning. Humans expect affection to appear clearly, purring, sleeping openly nearby. But trust usually returns much earlier than that. It begins in microscopic behavioral shifts. The cat retreats slightly slower. They watch longer before hiding. They remain in the same room instead of disappearing immediately. Tiny emotional calculations are happening constantly inside their nervous system. Maybe this human is safe today. And for some cats, that sentence takes enormous courage to believe. Fear changes the way cats read the world. A cat that has lost trust does not stop wanting connection. That is the heartbreaking part. Many still crave closeness deeply. They still want warmth, safety, companionship. But fear interrupts the process before attachment can fully settle into comfort. So the cat begins living in contradiction, approaching, then running away, watching carefully, then hiding under furniture, sleeping nearby, but never fully relaxing into deep rest. And humans often misunderstand this behavior completely. They think, the cat doesn't like me, when in reality, the cat may already feel emotionally attached. They are simply trying to protect themselves from disappointment before it happens again. Because cats remember emotional outcomes far more deeply than people realize. A frightening experience does not disappear simply because time passed afterward. The nervous system continues preparing for it long after the event is over. And this is why rebuilding trust is almost never linear. Some days the cat moves closer. Some days they disappear again. Not because progress vanished, but because fear and hope are fighting each other at the same time. Part of the cat wants connection. Another part remembers why connection once felt dangerous. And healing often looks exactly like that conflict. When cats begin watching you differently, one of the quietest turning points happens long before physical affection appears. It happens through observation. A fearful cat begins watching a human differently. At first, fearful cats monitor people the way prey animals monitor danger. Every movement feels important. Every sound must be analyzed. But over time, something subtle changes. The staring becomes softer, less defensive, less focused on survival. The cat begins studying the human with curiosity instead of suspicion. Sometimes they quietly sit across the room, simply watching daily routines. Making coffee, folding laundry, working at a desk, walking calmly through familiar spaces. And strangely, these ordinary moments matter enormously. Because predictability creates emotional safety. The cat slowly learns. This person moves gently. This person does not chase. This person respects distance. This person sounds the same every day. Humans often overlook this stage because nothing dramatic is happening externally. But internally, the nervous system is reorganizing itself around a new possibility. Maybe I no longer need to stay afraid all the time. And for an animal that spent weeks, months, or years expecting stress, that realization can feel life-changing. The first real sign of returning trust. The first true sign of rebuilding trust is often not touch. It is presence. A fearful cat begins staying near someone without urgently needing an escape route nearby. They remain in the same room longer. They stop reacting to every movement immediately. Their posture softens slightly, and eventually something very important happens. The cat stops preparing to flee every second. To humans, this moment may seem tiny, but psychologically it is enormous. Because survival mode is exhausting. Living in constant alertness drains the nervous system continuously. A fearful cat may spend entire days mentally preparing for danger that never arrives. So when a cat lowers that defense, even briefly, it means the environment no longer feels completely unsafe. And this is why quiet consistency matters more than dramatic affection. Cats trust repeated emotional safety, not emotional intensity. Calm routine, predictable movement, gentle voice patterns, respect for boundaries. Over time, the nervous system slowly relearns something it forgot. Nothing bad happened last time. Then eventually, maybe nothing bad will happen this time either. And once that thought appears consistently, real trust begins forming underneath it. But the strangest part comes later. Because when a cat finally starts rebuilding trust, emotions humans never realized existed often begin surfacing from underneath the fear. The personality hidden behind fear. Many fearful cats appear emotionally distant in the beginning. Quiet, withdrawn, untouchable. But once safety becomes consistent, an entirely different personality sometimes emerges. Playfulness, curiosity, affection, neediness, following behavior. Some cats suddenly become incredibly vocal. Some begin slow blinking constantly from across the room. Some sleep exposed in open spaces for the very first time. And humans often describe this transformation with surprise. It feels like becoming a completely different cat, but usually it was the same cat all along. Fear was simply covering the personality underneath. The emotional self never disappeared. It was hiding behind survival instincts. And this is something rescue caretakers witness repeatedly. Cats who once hid for months sometimes become deeply affectionate once they finally believe safety is stable. Not because they changed personalities, but because fear stopped controlling every emotional decision. And that is why trust changes more than behavior. It changes emotional visibility itself. The real personality was waiting underneath the entire time, searching for permission to exist safely. Why some cats test trust repeatedly. One of the most misunderstood parts of rebuilding trust is repetition. Fearful cats often test safety over and over again. Not consciously, not manipulatively. Their nervous system simply needs repeated confirmation. This is why a cat may approach affection one day, then avoid it the next. Humans sometimes interpret this as rejection or inconsistency. But psychologically, the cat is asking, is the safety still real today? Trauma often teaches animals that kindness can disappear suddenly. So the nervous system becomes cautious about fully relaxing too quickly. A cat may slowly approach a hand, then pause halfway. They may sleep nearby for one night, then hide again the next morning. Not because trust vanished, but because the brain is still verifying the environment repeatedly. And strangely, every patient response strengthens healing. Every time the human remains calm, gentle, predictable, and non-threatening, the cat collects another piece of evidence that safety was not temporary. Eventually those moments accumulate, and one day the cat stops testing as much. Because safety no longer feels fragile. It begins feeling reliable. Why forced affection slows trust down. Humans often try accelerating emotional bonding without realizing it. holding the cat longer than they want, following them constantly, picking them up repeatedly, so they get used to it. But trust built through pressure is unstable, because safety cannot exist where choice disappears. Cats rebuild trust fastest when they retain emotional control, the ability to leave, the ability to approach voluntarily, the ability to observe without feeling cornered. And strangely, once that freedom exists, many cats begin approaching humans far more often on their own, because fear decreases when escape remains possible. This is why emotionally intelligent bonding looks slow from the outside, but psychologically it is deeply respectful. You are teaching the cat. You are safe even when you say no. And for many fearful cats, that lesson changes everything.